if the solid surface is at a different temperature compared to surrounding fluid, whether it is gas or liquid, then the natural convection sets in. Okay, due to temperature difference, there will be a difference in density of the fluid which is within the vicinity of the surface, and the fluid which is far away from the surface. So this density difference leads to buoyancy forces, and the buoyancy forces will drive the fluid and setting the natural convection. Okay. So yesterday we discussed that all these details were discussed. Once again, we'll go through. There is the convection, natural convection can be stable or unstable. The main reason for the natural convection is the buoyancy force. What is buoyancy force? So this you have studied already in fluid mechanics. Let's once again go through it. Buoyancy force is exerted, the upward force exerted by a fluid on a body completely or partially immersed in a gravitational field. So this is important. Okay, one is a body is immersed in a fluid. Okay, and second one is there must be a gravitational field. So buoyancy forces are experienced only on a Earth surface. If you go into some deep space where there is no gravitational force or very negligible gravitational force, there you may not find these buoyancy forces. Okay, the magnitude of the buoyancy force is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced. So it is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced. So that means here the buoyancy force will be equal to weight, mean you have to take the volume that is displaced by the solid which is immersed in the liquid. This will displace an amount of liquid. So weight of that liquid. So how to find out buoyancy force is volume of the solid that is immersed into the density of the fluid. Volume of the body which is immersed, density of the fluid in which it is immersed. Okay, this will give you mass. Mass into G will be the force, buoyancy force that acts on the body. Okay, so this is a very basic that you already studied. Okay, so let's see how this buoyancy force is. So because this buoyancy force is very basic to our natural convection. So as we have seen in natural convection, if there is a solid surface, so you a boundary layer develops due to natural convection. So here the fluid is rising. Okay, so here fluid is experiencing the velocity. It is moving upwards. The surrounding fluid, okay, is stationary. It's not moving. Okay, so there will be a boundary between surrounding fluid and the fluid which is moving due to convection. So this is called a boundary layer. So if you see here, the driving force, the parameter that influences the convection is the buoyancy force. Okay, if you compare it with the forced convection, in the forced convection it was velocity of the free stream fluid which was moving u infinity, that decided. Okay, so here it is not, because the rest bulk of the fluid is stationary. Only the fluid which is near the surface is moving due to the buoyancy forces. Therefore, the buoyancy force plays an important role in the convection. Okay, therefore it influences the heat transfer coefficient. So estimation of this buoyancy forces is very important. Let's see what is this buoyancy force and how it is related to convection. Okay, so if I write that equation, buoyancy force acting on a body which is immersed in liquid is equal to density multiplied by gravitational acceleration due to gravity into volume. Okay, so so if I take this, now for a buoyancy force for a fluid which is in this vicinity of the surface. Now what is the buoyancy force acting here? So here it is not solid, both are fluids only. This fluid is at a lower density, this is at a higher density. That's the only difference. Okay, there is no solid here. So now let us take some volume of fluid which is near to the surface. Okay, so if I take that volume, right, the buoyancy force acting on this volume of a fluid, okay, I call it as V. I call this as a V, okay, on some volume V, volume of the fluid which is having different density. So multiplied by the density, surrounding density of the surrounding gas or a liquid, whatever it is, okay, fluid. So into gravitational force, the acceleration due to gravity. So density multiplied by volume. So please remember here it's the density of the still air, okay, stationary air which is in the room. Volume of the air, V is the volume of the air which is heated, okay, which is in the boundary layer. So these things should be very clear to you, right? So this is a buoyancy force which acts on the volume of air which is in the boundary layer. So if you take this buoyancy force, this will be upward, okay, this will be driving these gases upwards, right? So now the air which is there here, it will have its own mass, okay. So due to this mass, there will be weight which will be acting, okay. So the gravitational force of attraction, downward force which is acting on this mass will have a weight. So if you take that weight which will be downward, so body weight will be in a downward direction, buoyancy will be in the upward direction, right? So body weight will be given by mass of the fluid which is here in this into G. So mass of the fluid is given by its density and volume, okay, volume of the fluid and the density of the fluid which is heated, right? So here this volume is same in both equations, but for buoyancy force you multiply by the density of the surrounding fluid. To get the gravitational force acting on the gases, you multiply its own density, okay. So this is the, so body weight and the buoyancy force. Buoyancy force is acting upwards, body weight is acting downwards. So net force that is acting on this fluid which is in the boundary layer. So to calculate that net force, we have to take difference because they are opposite. So if I take difference, I assume that the body force is body weight is more than the buoyancy force, right? That means net force is downwards, okay. If net force is downwards, then the mass will sink, okay, right? If this quantity is positive, then it will sink. If this quantity is negative, the mass will rise, okay. The gases will rise if the this quantity is negative. If it is positive, the gases will sink. So that the sinking of gases will happen if it is during cooling, right? If you have a cold surface, there you get that, okay. So if I take this body force minus buoyancy force, I substitute here, I can take V and G common. So then I get a rho minus rho infinity. Rho is the density of the gases within the boundary layer. Rho infinity is the density of the gas outside the boundary layer, which is a surrounding air, right? So if you take that, so net force per unit volume, per unit mass, if I want to calculate. So it's a force acting. So I want to normalize this data, right? So if I divide it by the mass of a gas that is there in the boundary layer, right? So if I take that, so I'll divide it by the mass. If I do that, then what I will get? Force divided by mass. Right side also I'll divide, okay. So if I divide this, here it is volume of the gas, right, in the boundary layer, divided by mass. What is this? Volume by mass is a 1 by density. Mass by volume is density. Volume by mass will be 1 over density. So I get I substitute this V by M as a 1 by rho. Okay. Further, if I simplify, I will divide this. If I divide this, this will become 1 minus rho infinity by rho. Okay. So I simplify this. So suppose if the surface is hot, then I call this density of the fluid in the boundary layer as a rho h, right? So I will substitute this as a rho h. If the surface is cold surface, then I substitute this as a rho c. Okay, cold surface. If it is cooling, then I call this as a density as a rho c, cold. To C is indicating cold. So if it is hot, the rho h will be less than rho infinity. We know that hot air will be less dense compared to surrounding air, right? So in that case, what happens? This will be negative value, right? This is negative value means the buoyancy force will be upward, net force will be upwards. Negative value means the gases will move upwards. If I substitute rho c during cooling, right? Cold means the air within the boundary layer will be colder than the surrounding. So that means rho c minus rho infinity will be positive. So if it is positive means this value will be positive. That means gases will or a relative fluid will sink. Okay. So for hot surface, so I am substituting here. Okay. So I will do show for hot surface. You can do similar analysis for cold surface. You get similar results. Okay. So for hot surface, I will write the body net force per unit mass will be equal to G into rho h, the density of the hot air, minus density of the surrounding air divided by density of the hot air in the boundary layer. Okay. That is known as fluid film. Okay. That surrounds the surface. Fluid film. Density of the air in the fluid film. Okay. So this I have done, right? So we have an equation here which relates the density of suppose same air at a different temperatures, right? So here rho infinity is the air at a lower temperature, rho h is the same air at a different temperature. When the temperature is different, the density relation is given by how the two densities are related is given by an equation. So rho infinity is the density of the surrounding air is equal to rho h density of the hot air which is in the fluid film into 1 plus beta coefficient of a volumetric expansion beta into temperature difference. So the temperature difference between cold air and the hot air, whatever the temperature difference is there between a hot air and cold air, that temperature difference into coefficient of volumetric expansion plus 1. Okay, so this is how they are related. So how this equation comes, and if you are interested to know how this is, you can take it for granted for now. But someone if is interested, you can refer the heat transfer book by Senjil, the heat transfer and practical approach book, textbook by Senjil. So I'll just show that where it is in that book. So in this book, so if you go to natural convection, he has explained how this relation comes and all that is explained here. So if you're interested, you can refer to the book. Okay. So for time being, you just you have to remember this relation. And in the exam, you need not derive this. Just remember this relation. Rho infinity will be equal to rho h 1 plus b beta into delta t. Okay, this is the temperature difference between hot and cold air. Okay. So if I take this, if I simplify this further, this equation. So what I will do is I'll take this rho left side, so then it becomes rho infinity by rho h, right? So then I will bring this one this side, so it will become rho infinity by rho h minus 1. It will be equal to beta into delta t. Why I'm doing this, you will realize, you will understand later. Okay. So let's go back to the net force per unit mass that we were looking at. So net force per unit mass, buoyancy force that is acting on the fluid. Whether this force can be upward or downward depending on whether the fluid is cold or hot, right? So now what I'm discussing is the hot fluid. So for hot fluid, if I take equation, the net force per unit mass will be equal to G rho h minus rho infinity divided by rho h. So I can simplify this rho h by rho h. If I divide, this becomes 1 minus rho infinity by rho h. So if you, which you can compare with this here. That means I can substitute this here. So if I do this, so I get a 1 minus rho infinity by rho h. Okay. So this and this, if you compare this is just you can substitute here, right? So if I substitute that, you become minus beta into delta t, right? This is rho infinity by rho h minus 1. Here what I have is 1 minus rho infinity by rho h. That means it's negative. Right? So therefore I have to substitute here minus beta into delta t. So that becomes g into minus g beta into delta t. Okay. So this term is very important. Okay. This is what is responsible for the natural convection. This is a very important parameter that influences the natural convection. Okay. So net force per unit mass, this product is known as, this is one of the term which is which influences the heat transfer coefficient, on which the heat transfer coefficient depends in a convection, in a free convection. Okay. So this is a very important parameter for us for analysis of free convection. So let's see the dimensional analysis of the free convection process. So empirical expression in terms of dimensional numbers for a heat transfer coefficient. I have done similar. We have done similar analysis for a forced convection also. Okay. So let us try the same process for a free convection. So to derive an empirical expression through a dimensional analysis. So heat transfer coefficient in free convection is a function of a different parameters. Okay. Similar to your forced convection. What are those parameters? Okay. Let's see. So here H is function of a L geometry, right? Length of the surface, okay, mu, right, the viscosity of the fluid, Cp, specific heat of the fluid, K, thermal conductivity of the fluid, rho, density of the fluid, beta, coefficient of volumetric expansion, temperature difference between the surrounding air and the wall, right? The temperature difference which is causing. If there is no temperature difference between wall and the surrounding air, there won't be any natural convection. Right? This delta T is very important. So delta T, how it influences through buoyancy forces. Okay, delta T causes density difference. Density difference leads to buoyancy forces. The buoyancy forces cause the convection. Okay, so that effect is taken by this group total beta, delta T, and G. How this comes, we have seen in the previous discussion, right? That is a net force acting on the fluid per unit mass is equal to beta into delta T into G that we have discussed just now, right? So this is put together. This parameter is taken together. Okay. So this is one parameter together. Okay. Then rho. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parameters that influence the heat transfer coefficient. Right. So to do that the analysis, so let M be the number of fundamental units and N be the total number of variables. So total number of variables including H will be 7 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 H. You have to include H also. Right. The fundamental units that you come across in all these units, if you look at them, they are made up of a length unit, meter, the time unit, then the mass unit, kg, right? Then the temperature, right? So only 4 fundamental units are there. Others are not there here in this group. Other fundamentals you don't find, right? So if you take that if you take this 4 minus, so if I take this Birmingham theorem, N minus M, total number of variables minus number of fundamental units. Okay, total number of variables units is 7 minus number of fundamental units. Okay, what are those fundamental units? Length unit L, time unit T, mass unit M, and temperature T. Okay, this we take. So that means N minus M means you get 3. That means there will be 3 pi terms. Okay. And repeating variables. What are the repeating variables here? So repeating variables are the one which, if you take them together, they should not form any dimensionless quantity, right? Dimensionless number, right? So these 4 variables don't form any dimensionless number, right? So if you other units, if you take this H and they form dimensions like Nusselt number, HL by K, right? Prandtl number, right? Like that. So these 4 don't form any dimensionless number, okay? Which is relevant to the convection. They may lead to some other dimensionless number, which we are not interested. The dimensionless number which are relevant to the convection, they don't lead to any dimensionless group. Okay, so that means which don't influence, right? They may form some other dimensionless group, which is of not importance for us. The dimensionless groups which influence the convection, they don't form any of that, right? So if you take, then we write pi terms, pi 1, pi 2, pi 3. So repeating variables we repeat every time, right? So repeating variables here, L, rho, mu, and K. Length, density, viscosity, conductivity. Then non-repeating variable, heat transfer coefficient, H. Right? Second pi term, length, density, viscosity, conductivity. Then the specific heat of the fluid. Then third pi term will be repeating variables, length, density, viscosity, conductivity. Then non-repeating variable group beta delta t into g. This is taken together. Okay, this is taken as one parameter. So now carrying out a dimensionless analysis for a pi1 term. Right? Let us do the dimensionless analysis for the pi1 term. So that means if I write the individual parameters, individual properties that influence in terms of their fundamental units. Okay. So then left side is a dimensionless group. Pi is a dimensionless group, so it doesn't have any dimension, right? So right side has different parameters are there. I'll write them. Okay, there in terms of their fundamental units. So now L is meter. Meter means length unit. Length unit fundamental unit L. Okay. So density. Density is kg per meter cube. So mass unit is m. M to the power 1. L to the power minus 3. So similarly, you can write for other units. Okay. So we write like this. So these are the these properties expressed in terms of fundamental units, right? Length is L, rho is L, m minus 3, m L to the power minus 3. So mu viscosity will be m L to the power minus 3. Then the temperature, time to the power minus 1. So if you take thermal conductivity m, that is mass, L distance, T, that is time to the power minus 3, then temperature theta to the power minus 1, right? Then later it is H, heat transfer coefficient, m T to the power minus 3, theta to the power minus 1. So we are writing in terms of their fundamental units. So now both sides power should be equal, right? Left side powers are 0, so then right side also must be 0. So that means I equate that. So first we'll take the least number of times which parameter appears. So if you see here, theta appears twice, 1, 2, right? That we take first, right? So theta here, theta to the power minus 1 into d1, right? That becomes a minus d1, right? This multiplied by this means minus theta to the power minus d1 into theta to the power minus 1. So that means if you equate the power, here left side it is 0. So that means it will be minus d1 minus 1 will be equal to 0. Okay, which can be further written as the d1 is equal to minus, right? Then we take a next parameter t. T appears 3 times, right? So here it is t to the power minus 1 into to the c1. So that means it becomes t to the power minus c1. Here it is t to the power minus 3, right? The d1. So that therefore it becomes a t to the power minus 3 d1. So here it is t to the power minus 3. Okay. So therefore this equation will be c1, okay, minus c1 minus 3d1 minus 3 equal to 0. So here we have already determined d1 equal to minus 1. So I have already determined that d1 is equal to minus 1. So that means now it is if I simplify this equation, what I get here is c1. If I simplify this, so I will get c1 is equal to 0. So similarly, the next step. So for mass, m. So if you take m appears 4 times. So m mass here 1. So b1. So this becomes c1 b1 plus c1 plus d1 plus 1 will be equal to 0. Okay, b1 plus c1 plus d1 plus 1 is equal to 0. So that means if I solve this equation, already I know c1 and d1. I substitute in this, therefore I get b1 is equal to 0. So similarly for length, right? Length unit. For length it is a1, then it is minus b1 minus 3b1. So here it is minus c1, here it is minus d1. Then you don't have L term here, so that means this will become a1 minus 3b1 minus c1 minus sorry, this is plus here, plus d1 equal to 0. So if I already I know d1, c1 and b1, I substitute in this equation, therefore I get the a1 is equal to 1. So substituting this in the here pi term. So I have found out a1, b1, c1, d1. So I will substitute these values in this, I get the pi term. So the first pi term will be, therefore pi 1 is equal to L to the power 1, right? Because a1 is equal to 1. Rho to the power 0 because b1 is 0. Mu to the power 0 because c1 is 0. Then k to the power minus 1 because d1 is minus 1. Then h as it is. So if you simplify this, you get a first pi term as hl by k, which is nothing but a Nusselt number, right? Definition from definition of Nusselt number, we know that the hl by k is nothing but the Nusselt number, right? So now I got one dimensionless quantity. So next, similarly, we will analyze the first dimensional analysis for a second term pi term. So similar analysis we carry out here. Okay. So write in terms of write all the terms in terms of fundamental units. Then equate the both sides to both powers. Then we get the values d2, c2, then b2, a2. Okay. So if I substitute in the second pi term, I get a second pi term as the equal to mu cp by k. So this mu cp by k is nothing but a Prandtl law, right? So this is nothing but the Prandtl law. So similarly, you can do this analysis for the third pi term, which I will not do it. You do it as an exercise. So if you do this for third pi term, this you will get this as a Grashof number, which we have already defined. This number as a Grashof number we have defined. So you will get third pi term as a Grashof number. So since the h is found in the first pi term, so therefore we write the pi 1 is equal to pi 1 is function of the pi 2 and pi 3. Okay. So experimental studies have found that the Nusselt number is equal to the c into Grashof number to the power m, Prandtl number to the power n. Okay. So these c, m, n are constants need to be determined experimentally. Okay. So we'll stop now here. I think we are running out of time. If there are any questions, we'll try to address that. Okay. Right. So if there are any questions, we'll unmute all things. Then we'll. Okay. Yeah. Ranjan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So